So where were we? 122. The formation of samskaras is progressive. You see, new ones are offshoots of the previous one. It's like the process by which we learn. If you don't know the alphabet, you can't possibly read Shakespeare. If you don't know some physics, you can't understand Richard Feynman. Similarly, what we make of the world around us depends upon our previous experience. Please underline that. What we make of the world around us depends upon our previous experiences. But not every impression comes as a result of our experience, I said. For instance, in your example, a snake bite caused a person to develop a phobia of snakes, but phobias don't always arise out of personal experience. A person can be afraid of snakes without ever having been bitten. So Joshua Pollock is now giving another version of the same example. Some try to make sense of these things in a fantastical way, said Daji. They will say that such a person must have been bitten by the snake in a previous life. But that's very lazy argument. For instance, so many people are afraid of flying. By the same logic, they must have been in plane crashes in previous lives. But airplanes have only existed for the last 100 years. So that can't be the answers. Phobias do arise from our experience, but an experience need not materialize for us to feel it as real. For example, you can imagine a frightening snake and start to feel afraid. The snake isn't real, but the emotion is. Your imagination triggers a very real fear of death. When that death thought gets connected to your underlying fear, it automatically becomes a phobia. This isn't only true for fear and phobias. When our any thought becomes connected to an existing samskara, a new samskara can be formed. So now he's explaining about multiple ways of the samskaras getting formed. What happened to Ganeshan? Ganeshan disappeared. I think our Bharat pushed him out. He is now joining. We'll check with him now. Bharat, we'll check with him.
Yes.
Who pushed him out? Ganeshan, I thought you are a heavyweight. How come somebody pushed you out?
It is easy to push heavyweight.
So I think only person who can push out is somebody who is heavier than you, heavier weight than you, not otherwise. So anyway, so now he is talking about multiple other ways of forming the samskaras. Imagination can give rise to samskaras because imagination can also give rise to emotional content. See, any emotional content is the samskara that we are talking about. So imagination can give rise to past experience can give rise to, and then there is one thing here about flying not being available before 100 years. So how many people knew about the flying machines that were there in the past, in the ancient times? We have all read about Ravana's Pushpaka Vimana. Kubera had Pushpaka Vimana that Ravana gets from Kubera, and he uses it during his lifetime. So if Kubera had Pushpaka Vimana, it's quite possible that other people, other devatas also had their own Vimana. Like for example, Garuda is the Vimana for Vishnu. Peacock is the Vimana for our Skanda. So mouse is the Vimana for our Ganesha. So each one has their own Vimanas. So and in fact, Babaji writes about how Bharadwaja Muni had, if I remember, Bharadwaja Muni wrote about using mercury for flying machines. So there is a Vimana Shastra written by Bharadwaja Muni, and there he explains about the construction of a plane and how to use mercury as a fuel for the plane. Like we use a different fuel as of now. There used to be a different times when mercury was used as a plane, for a fuel for the plane. So in other words, this conception that we have got that only modern man has developed certain things and previous people were all so-called illiterates, I think that's probably not right. And that's true for many things actually, not just for the flying, but there are many things that, for example, even now people are wondering and fascinated about the rock temples that we have across many different parts of Karnataka, Berul, Halibidi, Shravanabelagola, quite a few parts of Karnataka, especially South India. You have such a good temples which are built, which last for hundreds of years, thousands of years. No, I don't think any building that is built by a modern man can last for hundreds of years. Most of the buildings are gone within a matter of a few decades. It requires a lot of repairs. So definitely, we don't know the kind of technology that they had at that time, which actually made all these things possible. So I think it's a sometimes humbling experience to accept that there were certain things our ancestors were actually far more good at than what we are at present. Right, Ganesh? You agree?
Yes,
Bharat?
yes.
Bharat will agree. You know, Bharat, there are three Bharats. Who are the three Bharats? Not this Bharat. There are three Bharats. Hey, tell up, Bharata. Who are the three
Mm,
Bharatas?
that Mahabharata, sorry, Ramayana,
Ramayana, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Bharata. Anybody else that you
the
know?
Mahabharata, Mahabharata.
Mahabharata also there is one person who comes, King Bharata, King
Only two.
Dhritarashtra's ancestor.
Mm, only
So
two.
Dush, Dushyanta's son. He is the second Bharata. Who is the third Bharata? These two things you will know, Mahabharata and Ramayana, because they come from these two epics. And you would have watched the serials. The third Bharata, if you will only know, only if you have read Bhagavata Purana. The third Bharata is Jada Bharata.
Jada. Which Bharata?
Jada Bharata. Jada means he was always ignorant. He was not at all active in his life. But that's because of the past life where he was a king in the past life. And then
Right.
he goes on to develop spiritually. And then in the last life that he is born as a Bharata, he is very inert, very inactive, very lazy, appears to be very lazy. And so then the story goes further after that. So you want to say something, Ganeshan?
He was born as a deer also.
So it's a good story to learn about um, future lives or past lives. Both are there. So if you take the last life of Bharata, we will go to future life, the past lives. If you take the first life of his Bharata as a king, then you will go to future lives. So from both perspective, you can understand that. Okay, Jada Bharata. This is the fourth Bharata. Please remember. Okay. So shall we continue? So there are a lot of explanations. You see, what is wrong with somebody having a snake bite in the past life? Definitely they'll be fearful of it, right? So in fact, Babuji himself has given some examples where he had to go to the past life to remove some of the samskaras. The effect was actually being felt in this life by the abhyasis.
How
How means during the meditation.
during the meditation he went
During the
to
meditation, they could trace out one of the things that was the Abhyasi was having to some issues that happened in the past life. So whatever was tried in this life was not clearing that. So when they went to the previous life and cleaned that off, then this particular effect gone.
Previous lives in terms of samskara, is it?
Sorry,
Previous life in terms of
previous life. Yes.
samskara.
So all of us have previous lives. So don't worry about it.
Allah, but I wanted to know if he actually went in time backwards and did that, or like just cleaned that samskara that is already there.
I'll just read it out in Kannada. This is from the Red Book for Preceptors. ಮೊದಲನೆಯದು ಅಗತ್ಯ ಉಂಟಾದಾಗ ಅಭ್ಯಾಸಿಯ ಪೂರ್ವ ಜನ್ಮವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳಬಲ್ಲವರೇ ಸಮರ್ಥ ಪ್ರಶಿಕ್ಷಕರು. ಅಗತ್ಯ ಉಂಟಾದಾಗ, ವೆನ್ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ, ಅಭ್ಯಾಸಿಯ ಪೂರ್ವ ಜನ್ಮವನ್ನು, ಟು ನೋ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಅಭ್ಯಾಸಿಸ್ ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಲೈಫ್. One who has the capacity is a capable perceptor. That's the first sentence. ನಾನೀಗ ಅದನ್ನು ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ವಿಧಾನದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬರೆಯಲಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಐ ಆಮ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ರೈಟ್ ಟು ಯು ಅಬೌಟ್ ಹೌ ಟು ನೋ ದ ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪರ್ಸನ್. And there the story ends.
So it's at samskara level itself. Okay.
See, there are direct visualizations and there are deductions. Both are possible. So direct visualizations is one way of doing it. And that's what Babuji elaborates in this particular method. And then deductions. You can easily deduce certain things from the past lives. Based on what you see now, you can easily deduce. So there are two methods of knowing the past lives. One is the method of deduction, other method is direct visualization. Okay, so let's not go to the past life, and then Bharata will ask me, what was my past life? Okay, so so this particular paragraph, he talks about phobias arising not just from experiences, but also from imagination. And then samskaras creating other samskaras. And that's what usually happens in many of the psychiatric patients. So they become fearful of certain things, and then they actually view many things from that particular perspective, and that creates more fears of many different objects. So for example, OCD, they usually have OCD with one particular symptom. Then as and when they grow, the OCD gradually spreads to other areas of life also. So that's like the samskara spreading to other areas. Okay. Samskaras are like trees. Let us take the fear of death again. That's the tree's trunk. From the trunk, new branches sprout. They are your phobias. The tree is the sum total of all your impressions related to fear. It's a network of fear, a dynamic of fear in your consciousness. So, samskaras are like a tree. You can give rise to various branches. And as our consciousness is filled with many of other kinds of trees, I remarked. Yes, said Daji. And from each tree, a new tree can grow. Ultimately, our consciousness become a complex jungle. Each samskara takes up real estate in consciousness. Daji is a businessman. That's why he is writing that sentence. Each samskara takes up real estate in consciousness. Our energies get completely tied up in these samskaric patterns. Underline that. Our energies get completely tied up in these samskaric patterns. That's why when people tend to overthink, they complain of tiredness. Many psychiatric patients with depression, with anxiety, complains of tiredness. The reason is there is huge number of multiplication of samskaras, higher rate of samskara formation. When there is a higher rate of samskara formation, energy gets trapped in these samskaras. Corollary, when you clean the abhyasi, the energy gets released from these samskaras. The samskaras trap energy. If you clean the samskaras, the energy gets released. That's why when a person evolves spiritually, they are able to do a lot more things than a normal person is capable of doing. They are highly energetic. Because two things, the energy is released from the samskaras, that becomes available. You go to the source of the energy, that also is not available. So because of these two reasons, you become highly energetic, highly efficient in whatever you do. That is what happens when you progress spiritually. Okay, and that is one of the reasons why our causal body gets potentiated. The potency of the causal body increases. Remember that. How do we know that the work is occurring on the causal body? The potency of the causal body is increased. Now, when the potency of the causal body is increased, it can manifest anything with ease. Okay, so suppose you are learning something new, you can pick it up pretty fast compared to many other people because the potency with which you are picking up itself is now higher compared to other people. Does it make sense? The potency increases. That's how you know that the work on the causal body is occurring. Okay, so that sentence, that potency increases in the causal body is there in designing destiny. Yeah. I told you people to read two things, and suddenly I now remember designing destiny.
I shared in the group also.
You shared, huh? Oh, I did not see. What happened? What did you share?
In Truth Eternal, there is one chapter. 1 second, let me go through.
Which chapter? Just tell the chapter's name.
Yeah, give me a minute. Death, withdrawal of the soul.
In that chapter, huh?
Yeah.
But I don't think that is the name of the chapter.
13th chapter, death, withdrawal of the soul.
The first part.
It says time Mahakal was born out of it, which was an embodiment of shadow and darkness in a circular form. It looked either and tighter and said, I am. The word I was created from that time onwards. It feared, and the fear started from that time on. And fear is created from the illusion of estrangement along with I-ness in the thought.
So fear is not created out of any particular experience. Fear is created out of the fear of separateness. Idea of separateness gives rise to fear.
Okay.
And that is what happens. So yesterday we were discussing about the origin of the fear, no? So not necessarily fear is not always related to the experience. It's something related to the idea of separateness. So when the soul first realized that it's separate from the Supreme Soul, then it started fearing. And the desire came about to overcome that fear. So how to overcome that fear? You have to overcome the idea of separateness. So that was the desire. So what's the big desire? The merging of the soul with the Supreme Soul. When the merging of the soul with the Supreme Soul occurs, you are overcoming the idea of separation. So the desire actually had origin at that level. That's why it's very, very difficult to get rid of the fear, the desires. That's why he say karma is God's creation. Karma is desire. And krodha is also God's creation. Krodha is something that we get when the fulfillment of the karma is interrupted. So krodha is given as a tool to fulfill the karma. But we use it crudely. Karma and krodha. We don't recognize where this is coming from. And that's when it becomes a hindrance for our journey. The original desire, which is the karma, and the original capacity or the energy that is given to fulfill that particular desire is the krodha. So these two things are God given for our journey, for the merger of the soul with the Supreme Soul. Krodha not in the way that we are talking about in terms of feeling anger or irritability. That's a very crude form of it, krodha. Krodha is you being angry at a subtler level that you have not reached the goal or you are not striving towards the goal. And the goal being the merger of the soul with the Supreme Soul. So that restlessness that is there in the background is the element of krodha that we carry that is given by God. So that's why Babri writes about restlessness in the towards infinity, in the complete works. That it is not peace that we require, it is restlessness that we require. Restlessness to go towards the goal. So that is a subtler manifestation of the krodha. Kama, the original desire is the kama. Krodha is the restlessness to fulfill the desire is the krodha. So they are both given by God for our journey. Like we externalize everything, we have externalized the desire. We have externalized the krodha also. That's all that happens. So Daji also writes in the heartfulness way that you need to be angry at yourself. He writes it in spiritual anatomy. The anger should be directed towards oneself so that you have not strived to become a better version of yourself. So then the energy in the anger actually helps you become a better version of yourself. Otherwise, energy directed outwards as krodha can actually be detrimental, destructive, which is when it is directed internally, it becomes constructive. Okay, so let's continue now. So Gopal Krishna was very happy when I read about the real estate in consciousness. Our energies get completely tied up in these samskaric patterns. Now, very few people recognize that when you actually undergo a sitting with the preceptor or master, the samskaras, when they are cleared off, energy is released into the chakras. It is using that energy that we actually move from one chakra to another chakra. We expand in that particular chakra. Without the energy, you cannot expand. The energy is necessary. Okay. They dominate our thinking and guide our pursuits. What? The samskaras dominate our thinking and guide our pursuits. As our samskaric jungle grows denser, our consciousness deadens. In other words, our consciousness deadens means our consciousness solidifies. Its energies are tied up, its space is filled. So now, remember, when the samskaras are cleaned, the space becomes free, energy gets released. Because of this, the freedom of movement is there. With the freedom of movement, we move from first point to the second point. That's how we grow. Does it make sense? So they're all related to one another. The samskaras fill up the consciousness and over a period of time it solidifies. It deadens means it solidifies. Okay. Earlier we spoke about how the human system gets saturated with grossness, hardened impressions. I said. So what is grossness? Grossness is hardened impressions. Underline that. So you can get a one more question for that. Yes, said Daji. Well, nature now intervenes and purges this grossness from our system through a process called as bhoga. So what is bhoga is also another question. Bhoga means experience. In life, we undergo so many kinds of experience. Yogic philosophy tells us that these experiences are only bhoga. They are the effects of our past impressions to which we must now undergo in a tangible way. However, we generally react to this process of undergoing bhoga, in other words, our life experience. As a result of these reactions, we form fresh samskaras. So, bhoga is also an experience. When we search for a new experience, is also an experience. Our youngsters search for new and newer kind of experiences. Ask Bharat and Gopal Krishna. They want to go and jump from a mountain. Now that's a new experience, and they call it as bhangi jumping because only a person who has actually taken the bhangi will jump like that. A normal sane person will not jump like that. Right? Who will jump, man? Why would somebody want to risk their life on a piece of thread? You tell me that the thread can cut at any time, no? Who can ensure that the thread is safe and it can bear the weight, especially heavy weights? It's so difficult. The thread will break, right? So God will say, you depend on me without jumping. I'm happy that you can actually depend on me without jumping. He will say, you don't need give me extra work to make sure that the thread is also fine for you to jump. That is extra work for God, right? So these kinds of experiences that these youngsters try now, that create a set of samskaras. Anyway, life is, see, even if you are sitting in life, you are not doing anything like Jadabharata. You will still have to pass through experiences. It is inevitable, no? Suppose just imagine a person sitting at home for next 1 year. Don't you think they'll pass through experiences of life internally and externally? They will eventually pass through, no? So you cannot escape from experiences of life, right? So when we do not react to the experiences of life, then we are not creating new samskaras. But when we react to the experiences of life, we are actually creating new samskaras. Nature is helping us to bring the samskaras to bhoga through experience. So samskaras come to the bhoga through experience. That's why Badaji has written bhoga means experience in other way. But experiences can be of something else also. For example, we can sit and unnecessarily think. We can sit and unnecessarily imagine. We are creating samskaras, we are creating experiences by our thinking and imagination. Now that is not bhoga. We are actually creating samskaras. So experience can be for getting rid of samskaras also and for creating samskaras also. Please remember that. Okay. Bhoga comes to the surface as life experience. In other words, it comes as an experience that comes naturally without you actually contributing to it. That is life experience. Okay. So Bharat is invited to a marriage function. He goes there and he eats. And suppose the one of the items that he likes as a favorite, it's not cooked properly. It doesn't taste well. And Bharat is unhappy, upset about it. Then he reacts to the person who cooked it and saying that you did not cook this properly. That is, when you react, it is a new samskara that you're forming. When you don't react, okay, this was an experience that I had to pass through. When you don't react, you are just kind of getting rid of the past samskaras as bhoga. So, what is your favorite Bharat? Favorite eatery?
I eat everything. No, no legs and this.
No, 1 minute. You eat everything that we know. Just by seeing at you, we can know that. Don't worry about that. Now, we want something more special.
Right.
Not pineapple, man. Pineapple is only for cutting.
I like pav items.
What is it?
Pav bhaji, vada pav.
Pav bhaji. Okay, okay. So, vada and pav. Pav items. Pavam. In Tamil, you say pavam, no? Pavam. Bharat likes pav. Pavam means very innocent. That's what it means, right? That's what it's used kind of in Tamil. Pavam. Pavam means somebody who's innocent. So, so no wonder Bharat likes pav. Right? They go together. It's good actually. So Gopal Krishna, what is your favorite?
Kadabu.
Kadavu. Okay. Ganesh, You could only say one favorite, huh?
Yeah, mango is my favorite.
Mango. The sister?
Biryani.
Biryani. Oh, sister is very sophisticated. You people are very simple, man. Sister is sophisticated. Huh? Biryani. Anyway, interesting. See, like we all have our favorites, right? And sometimes some of these favorites can actually create samskaras. So it's just for that reason I pointed out. That's why I asked this question. Okay. So because sometimes we tend to err on the side of excess when we like a particular thing, right? So next time if you give Pabaji to Bharat, we need to get order some extra. Because if you like something, you will tend to eat more, no? Natural. So Kadabu is always in short supply in Gopal's house because he goes on finishing, go left, right, center. So mango is always short supply in Ganeshan's house. And I don't know biryani, whether it's outside biryani or home cooked biryani that Sudha sister is talking about.
Only homemade.
Homemade. So homemade means then it's difficult for others in the house to get biryani. So since sister itself herself is cooking, she'll make sure that she'll cook extra
Yes.
to accommodate her likings. Right? So it's in your hand actually. So I keep looking at Ganesh and drinking something or the other. I don't know what is he drinking. Here we go on talking. Ganeshan goes on drinking. So I don't know what does he do.
Water.
The cup does not appear to be of water.
Coffee I can't drink this way.
Okay. So let's continue. So remember, bhoga means experience, but experience can also be for creation of samskaras. Both are there. Experience can be either. So when we react to the life experiences, we form fresh bhogas, fresh samskaras. Nature is trying to clear off some of the samskaras by bringing it to bhoga, but when we react to it, we create more samskaras. So the process is never ending. I said we create impressions, they come to fructification as life experiences, and then we form new impressions from those experiences. It seems as if bhoga only perpetuates impressions instead of freeing us from them. We perpetuate them, said Daji. When we feel as if we are suffering for no reason, we react. You see, we generally become confused and embittered when undergoing miseries. Why? We ask. We complain to God. What the hell are you doing? These reactions not only create new impressions but also make us toxic from inside and deflect the grace that descends from above. Also, bhoga doesn't only come in the form of suffering. Enjoyment is also a manifestation of bhoga. That's another question. Bhoga comes in the form of enjoyment and suffering. True or false? So sometimes if they have not understood the concept properly, they say false. Because they think that only miseries are bhoga. Enjoyment is also bhoga only. But remember, any reaction creates an impression. So bhoga is only helpful if we don't react to it, I said. Yes, said Raji. Then it is immensely helpful. That is the wisdom of remaining serene and cheerful under all circumstances. He stood up, removed one of the Babuji's books from his shelf and began to read. The external help comes in the form of suffering caused by the wrongdoings of others, against which the people generally poison their thought on account of their own ignorance. This is very improper because this action, having helped the process of purification, has in fact put you under a sense of obligation. When this is the case, the work done through an external agency, as it may have me, as it may be, any, has in other words rendered the function of a true friend. So this is from one of the maxims. So now which maxim? Gopal Krishna. We just finished reading the maxims in the youth group. Which maxim?
Accept everything as all the miseries as coming from God, and I remember, but which exactly my maximum have to.
You are just muttering nothing. We can't hear anything.
The title I remember, but I don't remember the number that it is.
Look at the number and give us answer tomorrow, like Ganeshan did. So you are muttering. Sister is buttering biryani and you are muttering the answer here. You don't look at it now. It's all right. You can look at it. Huh. Five. There is one more thing. There are two things which helps you to deal with the miseries. How to work with miseries. 5 and 7. Hmm. And 7 is his favorite number. Remember. 9 is my favorite number. Ganeshan, your number?
Mine is 1.
1. Huh? Okay. Bharat?
Mine also is 7.
7. Oh, yeah, all James Bond 007. And Sudha sister?
7.
No, 7. We
My
have
phone
people.
password is 007.
Uh, so many people 7. Huh? Oh, all James Bonds in the group. And anyway, interestingly, our house number is 1007. One is Ganesh, then all the three sevens put together 007. That's our house number. Anyway, I think we'll stop here now. We'll continue tomorrow. I think we have slowed down slightly. We were finishing 4 5 pages. I think we are now going at 3 4 pages. So we just need to pick up the pace slightly going forward. I think we still be okay. 1 or 2 days extra clipping, but otherwise it will be fine.